starts in 1947 with a professor named Humbert. He is heading to America by a train to accept a teaching post in college. He stays at a widow's house named Charlotte. After Charlotte showing him her messy house, she leads him to the garden. Humbert stunned when he saw Charlotte's daughter Lolita. Lolita is lying on the grass on her stomach, flipping through a book while their sprinkle drizzles her. When Lo notices him, she flashes him a smile, showing off her retainers and emphasizing her young age of 14. Lolita reminds Humbert to his first love named Annabelle. She died shortly after he fell in love with her when they were teenagers. Though the child he loved was gone, he kept looking for her even as he grew into adulthood. Days pass, and Humbert wistfully and secretly watches childish and dance of music-obsessed Lolita, who appears entirely uninterested in him. From his room, he can see Lolita's room. Humbert wishes for an accident that will wipe out Charlotte and everyone else in their path, so he can have Lolita in his arms. Suddenly, Lolita enters his room and starts bothering him. She sits on his lap and smears the gum that she's been chewing on his notebook. She looks at him and says she's getting a zit. Humbert replies by telling her that she looks perfect to him, and they both smile. Lolita stands up and hurries out of his room when she hears her mom calling for Humbert. When it's time for Lolita to leave the house for boarding school, she and her mother squabble constantly as they walk to the car because she doesn't want to go. Just as Lolita gets in the car, she notices Humbert watching her from the window. Lolita rushes back to their house, then up the stairs, jumps to Humbert and kisses him. She quickly pulls away, and without saying anything else, she runs back to the car, and they drive off. Humbert, on the other hand, goes to Lolita's room and dives inside her closet. When he hears the maid calling out to him, he straightens up to meet her. She offers him a letter, which he reads and realizes is from Charlotte, in which she professes her love for him. She says that she wants him to be her husband and Lolita's father. Of course, Humbert is drawn in by the very final part. The two get married 2 weeks after, with Lolita absent from the ceremony. Despite Charlotte's devotion for Humbert, he continues to disregard her. 6 weeks into their marriage, Humbert successfully avoids most of his husbandly obligations by giving Charlotte sleeping pills. One day, Humbert comes home and finds Charlotte crying. She had read his diary, in which he referred to her as a big cow, elderly and stupid and unpleasant. Charlotte is enraged and upset, calling him a disgusting criminal monster. She swears she'll go, and when she does, Humbert will never see Lolita again. Humbert is perplexed, unsure of what to do next. He goes to get her a drink to chill her out. Suddenly, the phone ringing. The caller tells him that his wife had been killed. Charlotte had been hit by a car outside their house. A little girl hands the letters to Humbert, stating that she was about to mail them when she was hit. Humbert, dazed, accepts the letters and returns to house where he can stop pretending that he cares for his wife's death. After some time, Humbert drives to camp to pick Lolita. She greets Humbert with a bright smile and calls him Dad when she sees him. In the car, Lolita asks him how her mother is doing, and Humbert responds that the doctors aren't sure. She doesn't know her mother is dead. Lolita then moves to the backseat to get changed, while Humbert peeking from the rearview mirror. Humbert pulls her close to kiss the top of her head, telling her that he missed her. But Lolita says that he doesn't care about her in the first place because he hasn't kissed her yet. Humbert responds by pulling over and kisses her. They stop when a cop car pulls over beside them, asking if they spotted a blue vehicle. Later, the two arrive at a hotel. While Humbert is speaking with the receptionist, Lolita crawls to a dog and begins mischievously playing with it. The dog's owner is a wealthy, much older man dressed immaculately. The mysterious man claims that the dog likes her, but that he isn't fond of everyone. Lolita gives him a sly smile in response. In their room, Lolita asks Humbert incredulously if they'll be sharing the same room and bed. Humbert tries to persuade her that he can take the cot if she wants it. She talks of her mother divorcing him and strangling her if she finds out in uncaring tone. Humbert explains that he is responsible for her well-being as her father, and that because they are not wealthy, they must share a room when they travel. At night, the two enjoy dinner together. Lolita gestures to one of the men in the booths, implying that he is keeping an eye on them. It's the dog owner from the lounge, who she recognizes as Claire Quilty, the playwright. When the two are back in their room, Humbert is removing Lolita's shoes and socks. She wants to tell him about how she was at camp with heavy eyes and a hushed voice, but Humbert insists on waiting until tomorrow. Before he leaves to go to the hotel porch, Lolita bids him a good night, Dad. When Humbert gets to the porch, he hears Quilty speaking while rocking in his chair. Where in the devil did you get her? He then asks who the girl is, and when Humbert tells him that she's his daughter, Quilty tells him that he is lying. He invites them to lunch after knowing that Lolita's mother is dead. Humbert politely declines. Humbert returns to their room. He lies on the small section of the bed where Lolita isn't stretched. Lolita wakes up the next morning, kisses him softly and undoes Humbert's pants, leaving him in pure bliss. They leave the hotel by a car, and after a few futile efforts at conversation, Lolita asks if they can stop at a gas station. When they get at the gas station, Lolita hurries to the store. When she returns, she asks for coins from Humbert so she can call her mother. Humbert, stunned, and instructs her to sit in the car again. Humbert finally tells her that her mother is dead. They slept in separate beds that night. Lolita cries and wails, heartbroken and despondent over her mother's death. The still sobbing girl eventually finds her way to Humbert's bed, where he tries to comfort her. After that, they began traveling extensively throughout the country. But after some time, Lolita takes on a sullen face when she's finally alone. She gives Humbert a cold stare before ignoring him as he checks on her. Later, a sorrow-filled Lolita cries. Time passes. Humbert decides to enroll his pretend daughter to Beardsley Prep School. When he speaks with the administration, they emphasize that Beardsley Prep places a strong focus on acting, dancing, and dating. They refer to boys when they say, dating. Of course, Humbert is irritated. After some times in school, Lolita tells Humbert that she wants to participate in a play, but he refuses. She rocks his chair with her foot, telling him that she has the right to appear in a play. She then begins to tease Humbert and bargains both her allowance and her participation in the play. In exchange, Humbert gets more. One of the schoolgirls, Mona, discusses with Humbert while Lolita is rehearsing for her role as a witch in the school play. She points to a man standing near the exit, smoking, and tells him it's Quilty, the playwright. Humbert begins to feel nervous and suspicious. He's worried that she told the principal about their relationship. At home, Humbert confronts Lolita about skipping piano practice and perhaps disclosing their relationship to her friend. When Humbert smacks her feet off the table, their argument becomes heated. She screams at him to leave her alone and admits to trying to run from him by money that she earned. Humbert slaps her. Lolita confronts him by repeatedly telling him to murder her as he did her mother. After that, she runs away from him, screaming and shrieking, "Murderer," as she dashes down the stairs. She grabs a bike and rides out into the rain. Later that night, Humbert finally finds her in a shop. Lolita tells him she wants to leave Beardsley right now and go on another trip. This time she will be the one to decide where to go. After that, they're heading back home. The next day, they leave Beardsley and go for wherever Lolita desires. However, as they drive along, Humbert notices that they are being followed. He gives Lolita the car's license plate to write down and tells her that a detective's following him. One day, Humbert stops at a gas station and goes inside to try on some sunglasses. When he glances out the window, he sees Lolita chatting to a man, but the man has already left by the time Humbert rushes out. Humbert gets in the car, concerned, and asks her about him. She explains that the man had asked if they had a map. The two eventually stay in an inn again. Spiraling to paranoia, Humbert looks out the window and sees the same car following them outside, and when he looks back at Lolita, who's been watching him, she flashes him a mocking smile. Humbert suddenly pushes her to the bed and asks her who it is. But she continues to laugh at him, and Humbert becomes increasingly desperate, leaving him on the verge of tears. Humbert is awakened by a violent storm. Humbert is terrified, disoriented, nearly insane. He regains some kind of sanity after he washes his face. He takes his gun from his suitcase and stares at nothing in particular with it in his hand. They leave and stop by another inn on a rainy night. As the woman shows Humbert to their room, Humbert notices Lolita sitting on the ground, pale and shivering. The doctor informs Humbert that it's simply a virus and that it's nothing to be concerned about. Humbert wants to stay with her, but the doctor tells him that it's best if he leaves. The next morning, Humbert calls the hospital to ask about Lolita's condition. The nurse informs him that she awoke without a fever and was released to the man who is considered as her uncle. For months on end, Humbert searches far and wide. He goes from hotel to hotel, inn to inn. He's learned to recognize the kidnapper's handwriting, but the trace goes cold and dead. Dead end, He's forced to return to Beardsley. 3 years later, Humbert receives a letter. It begins with, "Dear Dad, how's everything? I'm married. I'm going to have a baby." As he reads the letter, a tear streams down Humbert's cheek. Lolita asks for money because she and her husband are unable to pay their bills. Humbert drives to the address and he finds a dusty, worn-down home. He finally reunited with Lolita once more. She's not as dolled up as she used to be with a huge belly from another man's child. She smiles brightly, greets him as dad, and lets him in. Humbert sees her husband through the back door and realizes he isn't the man he is seeking for. He asks Lolita who has kidnapped her. Lolita admits that it was Claire Quilty. She informs Humbert about Quilty, who liked little girls and kept them in his mansion. He kicked her out because she refused to comply with Quilty's request. As Humbert looks at her, he knew that he loves her more than anything in this world. He asks her to make the 25 steps with him to the old car she knows so well. She refuses it. He smilingly gives her the envelope, and she finds $4,000 there. However, as he watches her sort through the money, Humbert begins to cry. Humbert returns dejectedly to his car, where he imagines Lolita from 3 years ago, all dolled up and waving around. After that, Humbert goes to Quilty's luxurious mansion. Quilty is unconcerned about Humbert's presence, even when he pulls out a gun. Humbert shoots him, and the man dies in his bed. With the police on his tail and another group of officers blocking his way, Humbert swerves to a field as his surrender. On November 16, 1950, Humbert died in prison from coronary thrombosis. Lolita died in childbirth on Christmas Day a month later.